Welcome to the AU Scoop. I'm your host, Philip Dukes, aka DukestheScoop. Check me out on Twitter and Instagram at DukestheScoop. And please be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. If you would like to support further, please look at the link, look at the description, go find out how to be a member. That's right. Look to your bottom right or wait till the end of the video and become a member. We got varying membership pledges that you can make, and we appreciate all of them. All right, so look, first of all, war down, right? There's been a lot of talk on the message boards and the Auburn community about recruiting. Last week, Travis Burgess, a quarterback who a lot of people thought Auburn had in the bag at one point in time, even some people in the building, were a little bit shocked about that, about him going to North Carolina. He goes to North Carolina. You can't call it a flip because he never committed to Auburn, but there were some people who felt like he was what you would call a silent, kind of gave a pledge to. There was a little bit of miscommunication there. There were some people who thought that he made a pledge, and they were a little bit surprised about Burgess going to North Carolina. And for a quarterback who a lot of people deemed as a sure thing when it came to Auburn's class, it kind of started to raise some eyebrows, and people started to look around, and they started, and they're saying, a lot of Auburn fans right now are saying, bro, where are the commits? I mean, and I agree. Where are the commits? Now, my perspective is going to be a little bit different, being that I've worked in recruiting before a long time, on both sides of it. Been a recruiting liaison as well, independently uh, consulting with a sports agency as well when it came to NIL. So I've done a lot of work in the space. As a lot of got a lot of good relationships on the south side of Atlanta. So, which is a hot recruiting hotbed. So I've had some, I wouldn't say influence, but I've definitely been privy to a lot of the conversations, and I've advised a lot of the top recruits over the past about 4 years, since 2020 probably. Okay, cool. So when you look at the 24/7 sports rankings, Auburn is 33rd. And at one point in time last year, they had about the same number of commits, and that was good for number one overall. There was a time when, in the 26th class, when it was still the 25 cycle, Auburn was like one or two or three or somewhere like that. But top, because they got so many early commits. And I was like, man, this is a little different from what we're used to with Auburn, like the way that they're attacking so early. And you didn't see that momentum continue. Now, there was a time in the 25 class, and believe me, I got hell for it, where I said Auburn had the potential to have the number one overall class, pending they won about 8 games. Well, they didn't win 8 games, and they didn't end up anywhere near one, but to be a 5-7 team and still come out with a top 10 class says a lot about the job that they did recruiting. So now the question is, all right, Burgess, how do as people in the recruiting world say, how do you get stuffed in a locker by Bill Belichick and he just got there? And I think fans, so the question is it time to panic? And I say no. There are a couple reasons why. Let's look at Burgess. Okay, cool. When you've recruited at the level that Auburn has recruited at, where I think they said they have the third best quarterback room in the SEC and a top 10 recruiting quarterback room in the country, maybe number 8 overall. When you look at the other quarterback rooms, I'm pretty sure, and I didn't even go look at the list. I was talking to a buddy of mine earlier who's really tapped into the program. And when you look at what the rest of the top 10 classes and you look at the other quarterback rooms, you're going to see a trend of winning. You're going to see playoff contenders. You're going to see 8-9 games at least. You're not going to see a team that hasn't had a winning record in a while or 8 games in a while. Burgess was a guy who Auburn did a really good job evaluating early. A lot of people had some comparisons to Deuce Knight. Burgess being a righty, Dukes being a lefty. 6'5" as well, really athletic. Not sure if he's the passer yet, but so much time to develop as he's a younger guy, right? Um, but as everyone else started to do their evaluations, there are some teams that felt like Burgess can come in and help you earlier. So if a player wants to go in and play early, and the expectation is for that player to play early, then there's also a ramification that's financial. NIL is going to have to go up a little bit. We're going to have to talk different numbers. And I think Auburn, and I know Auburn was really competitive. Speaking to some in the know, Auburn was competitive. And I'm not going to say that NIL was the only factor of why Burgess chose North Carolina, but it was a factor, one. But two, the opportunity. There was a time where Burgess was kind of like, maybe he can develop, but he's going to get an opportunity to play at North Carolina. And when you look at the opportunity to play and you look at how much money Auburn already has tied up in his quarterback room, can you afford to be as aggressive as some other teams who may not be as well positioned as you are? Point in case, Auburn has Jackson Arnold, who will be there presumably for the next couple of years. A young budding star in Deuce Knight, who was a 5-star. So you got 2 5-stars already, and a starter with power forward experience in Ashton Daniels. Let's just ballpark some of those numbers. When you talk about the transfer portal, a 5-star or power 5-star in experience, Jackson Arnold, I would venture to say he's probably at least $1 million guy, right? Okay, cool. Another 5-star, Deuce Knight, gotta say he's at least a set 6, 7, anywhere between 600 to 1.2, somewhere in there. I heard some crazy numbers for Deuce Knight, but Auburn wasn't his biggest offer. I do know that. So, and I don't even just want to say everything I know, but I'm not completely. I have a better range of that, but let's just say he's maybe 750, and I'm on, whatever it is. Okay, cool. So if Jackson Arnold is 1, Deuce Knight is 750, Ashton Daniel, let's call him 300. You got $2 million already tied up in your quarterback room, presumably, right? Okay, cool. Auburn also has Eric Singleton, who you presume has to be a very well, compensated guy based on being the number 1 receiver in the portal last year. Okay, cool. Cam Coleman, who's arguably probably had an argument as of that last year's class. If Ryan Williams, right? And Jeremiah Smith are on the cover of NCAA 25, Cam Coleman is like basically right there with those guys talent-wise. He's getting a pretty penny. You got a first-rounder, Keldrick Faulk, on the other side of the ball. You got an All-American freshman cornerback and Jay Crawford on one side. You got K and Lee on the other side. All I'm saying is Auburn has recruited so well that they've got a bunch of money already tied up. When you think about revenue sharing, Auburn has been very proactive about their approach when it comes to kind of trying to make sure that you're able to utilize the salary cap, which is coming, right? And so, we just can't make all these wild promises. You can't just compete for every guy because revenue sharing is coming. Now, you've got some teams who are going to be better positioned for certain top tier guys because A, they get a discount for winning, right? 2, some of these guys may be in their state. Some of these guys may have a better shot at a position. And when you talk about winning, you also have to talk about the NFL. And you've got guys who have a better you have guys that'll be attracted to teams with better track records of putting people in the NFL as of recent. So Auburn has an uphill battle to climb. I mean, they got to climb uphill got a mountain to climb when you look at the guys that they're recruiting and who they're recruiting against. So that's one reason I'm not panicking, is because I know what Auburn has already. One, you can just look at the rooms. All the names I just said, there's talent all over the field for Auburn already. So I'm not panicking. Two, I know that Auburn hasn't put it together yet. We have yet to see Hugh Freeze being able to recruit with proof of concept. We talk about that every year. Proof of concept, proof of concept. You have yet to see this staff recruit with proof of concept. With that being said, it's pie in the sky at this point. You come to Auburn, you're going to be good. Well, this is year 3. When do we get to see Auburn be good? Think about the Penn State game. All the recruits that were there 2 years ago. I remember Cam Lee leaving that game. He ended up staying at Auburn. He ended up coming to Auburn, but he left that game. Didn't want to be around that type of lose. He played at Cedar Grove. He was going to Ohio State. At the time, Zach Etheridge did a great job recruiting him and got him to Auburn. But, I remember going to the game last year. Naeem offered Deuce Knight there. Them guys didn't look too happy. Deuce Knight will tell you, meet him and Naeem. They're together. Naeem was hot. He did not I believe it was the Arkansas game, if I'm mistaken. Maybe it was Arkansas. Maybe it was Arkansas. Naeem Alford was hot, boy. He was upset. Winning matters. So that's another reason that I'm not panicking about what's going on right now, is because when you see Auburn start to put some wins together, then you'll start to see some more motion. Right now, this is one of the weirdest recruiting cycles I've seen in a while, because there's multiple teams who aren't just blowing the doors off early. Now you got some teams that look at USC who've got a ton of commits early, but we've seen this story before. We've seen it. I mean, last year it came out like gangbusters. Auburn, usually does well in August. Then you see them make some late runs at people. This seems to be one of those years. So that's why I'm not panicking. It seems to be one of those years where Auburn can make that late run. When I think about the linebacker position, if I had any concern, it would be there. Not panic, but concern. Right now, all the tea leaves are saying your 2 commits in the class who are already, it's already the 33rd ranked class in the cycle, but 2 of your commits are on the ropes. Jermichael Gare, I believe he just canceled the OV this weekend. A lot of people think that he's close to decommitting. And there's some rumors out that, he could be silently committed to another school. We'll see. Early on, LSU was it for him. Moves to Louisiana. But I think the team to watch, one of the teams to watch here is Miami. Shadarius Tootle, another commit. Right now, he's been crystal ball. My man Wilt phone sent it to, I think he said Georgia. Talked to some people at Georgia. Definitely a take. We'll see how that develops. But Auburn is okay, I think, right? If you make a really good impression on Ant Davis of Grayson, I think right now I believe he's actually ranked higher than Tootle. And I think you got TJ White, who's the number 5 linebacker overall. He's more of a Mike. I think he's what you need. I would love to see Auburn really make a push with TJ White this weekend. And I think that kind of alleviates some of that, some of that pressure on the linebacker position. But that's a position that I think you'll see Auburn really push for. Running back is another position I think that Auburn's not in the best position when you look at their major targets. The word has been that, EJ was going to Bama, Derek Cooper to Miami, Jay Lamar to Georgia. That's pretty much been the word forever, right? For the last at least month, the word has been EJ Kroll to Bama, Derek Cooper, Miami, and Jay Lamar, UGA. All these guys talk. One running back I would watch Auburn with that I know that there's been some recent contact with is going to be Carson Baker out of Langston Hughes. Carson is he may be rescheduling some OVs, and we'll see if Auburn can get one of those. I'm not sure. I think they were a little bit late on this weekend, so we'll see. But I know Carson canceled his Clemson visit. I have heard there's been some contact between Texas and Baker, and he's just one of those guys who has the big, fast, strong guy, long speed. I mean, I think his speed is what really sets him apart at that size, 6'2", 200, 10'6", 10'6", and 100-meter consistently. So does he? Do you watch? You have to watch Auburn there. Maybe you watch Auburn with a guy like Amari Latimer out of Sandy Creek, and there are a few guys that Auburn as the quarterback out of Texas who is he out of Texas or Mississippi? I got to follow up on that. But there's a guy who plays quarterback that I forget his name right now, but I'll pull that up. Matter of fact, I'll pull it up right quick. Let me see. Eric Perry is the name. Eric Perry is the name out of DeSoto in Mississippi. That's what I'm looking for. And but yeah, Auburn also, I think they had a recent offer, like on the 8th. They offered let me see. The kid is in Alatoona. He's like 5'11", 195. Xavier Rucker, that's his name. So there's a couple guys that, Auburn's going to have to circle back on because, barring a Hail Mary, I think out of that top trio, I think they have their school that they're going to, and it's coming from multiple sources. So, and I think the last position that I just think Auburn really needs to hit a home run on is going to be offensive line. But everywhere else, I think, quarterback, wide receiver, you'll be fine. I mean, just so many options. I think you got to get an offensive line. I think you got to get some linebackers. I think you need a running back. Like, there's a huge opportunity for a running back in Auburn right now. So you got to, I think they'll think Coach Nix and his staff, Coach Freeze, they'll figure that part of it out. Well, all in all, I don't think it's time to panic in Auburn. I think that it's a time to be patient in Auburn. There's been plenty of patience. Trust me. I know Auburn fans. This is something else I know. Coach Freeze knows it. Nobody's pulling punches in that building. They know they got to win. They know it. They know they got to win. They know it. Not just for recruiting, but they got to win to eat. Like, they in Auburn, the people in that building know they've got to win. So all of this recruiting, yeah, you got to recruit too. But winning fixes recruiting for Auburn. Point blank, period. Auburn comes out here, spank Baylor, maybe go 5-1 over the first 6. I think all of this changes recruiting wise. But that's where it is. There's no proof of concept. People want to see Auburn win. These kids in the 26 class, and I call them kids because most of them are under 18, they haven't seen Auburn be a relevant team in November. I can't, not since they've been, real football fans or guys who were really looking, not since they've been recruited. Let's say that's a better word. The class of 2026 has not been able to visually see Auburn play meaningful football in November since they've been recruited. And I think if that changes, you get out to a good start, then you start to see people turn their eyes and, kind of open up their eyes a little bit and say, Auburn is rocking. They got it going. I see a future here. You really haven't even been able to see that 90,000 in Jordan Hare go crazy. That'll be 100,000 in a couple of years. So I think winning cures all. So that's why I'm not panicking about Auburn really not setting the world on fire right now when it comes to recruiting. They win, they will get players, as they always do. All right, that's my time, man. See you soon.